This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday Night Raw review here on the WWE Podcast. It is the 19th day of November, 2024. Getting closer to the end of November, unbelievably. Another year is about to be in the books, and I hope everybody's enjoying their week as we roll into midweek here and get closer to Survivor Series, which obviously is the next big destination. This past week on Raw, we did have some progression forward in that regard. Not really a lot of new matches per se announced, but just your progression in what they already have presented us with the storylines we know are going to be at Survivor Series and have a match there. Yes, this Raw was taped. This was a taped Raw, so what we saw was a crowd that felt like it had been through two shows, and that's fine. I am all for talent having the time off with their families during Thanksgiving. No issues whatsoever there. And they'll be back next week fresh and ready to go as we wrap up the Survivor Series hype and we get closer to that Survivor Series date. And it's going to be a big PLE, no doubt about it. And I think it's pretty clear that when we look at the PLE, the top of the card is, as expected, the Bloodline. Bloodline. Now we have the element of Bronson Reed on Solo side. We have yet to see Seth Rollins, although based on this past week, him denying the Bloodline, original Bloodline again, I would imagine that coming next week, he will be pushed over the edge. And next week, Seth Rollins will likely join the OG Bloodline to counter Bronson's joining the Bloodline of the Bloodline 2.0. So we're there. We're not officially there, but I could see where things have moved in that direction. And I appreciate, though, this past week, Seth at least making it clear that he is not going to be teaming with Roman Reigns. He has no interest in it. He's stuck by his guns. I appreciate that. Now, what we saw this past week, again, may change his mind, and he had a match with Bronson Reed, and Solo cost him the match. But is one match going to really make Seth go back on his word? Apparently so. We'll see what happens next week on Raw, where we'll likely see Seth Rollins in a turnabout face, right? I think he'll change his tune and join to face off against Bronson Reed and the Bloodline 2.0. What's going to make him change his mind beyond the match? Maybe Roman Reigns shows up. Perhaps Roman Reigns shows up and calls out Seth Rollins. Maybe that's what I would do. And have Roman acknowledge, hey, I know you don't like me. I don't like you. We've got a lot of issues we haven't worked out yet, and we will work them out. And we will be foes before we're friends again. Something along those lines. And all I'm asking is to join for one night and put those differences aside for one night. You get to get your hands on Bronson Reed, get him inside of a cage just like you wanted, and we put our differences aside for one night. And I think that's what they'll do. And that's what Sami tried to sell Seth Rollins this past week too, saying that he put the differences last year with Cody Rhodes aside and teamed with Sami and Jay. And that's a good argument. But for me, I think Rollins and Reigns need to have a face-to-face conversation. That'd be, to me, the only credible way to have Rollins' mind changed. And I think that it likely will. All right. And I'm fine with it if they have a real reason. All right. So, and it looks like they might do that. But having Rollins in the match, presumably, is going to make the match better from a quality standpoint. Did Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins need to be in this match at all? No. No, of course they didn't. They could have had their own match at Survivor Series. They were going very well. They could have had their own match. There's no need to put them in here. You don't need a 5-on-5. You could have done 4v4. But they elected to go with the additional 2 participants. And you know why. You know why. It's simply to add star power to the match. You get 5-on-5. It's Survivor Series feel. And it's fine. So I don't want to harp on that too much. But I think we are going to see Seth Rollins go back on his word, but in a way that actually makes sense. So there. Now, Priest and Gunther I want to talk about quickly too. And having Gunther, who continues to show a more sympathetic side, a more human side, telling Kaiser backstage, you don't need to speak for me out there. I told you not to speak for me out there. You need to do you. Be your own man. Find your own way. Encouraging him, instead of asking Kaiser to be his lackey and continue to do the bidding of Gunther, he told him, you need to forge your own path. And that's not what heels say. Heels are very selfish. Heels are out for themselves. Heels make sure that they have henchmen to do their grunt work. And that is not the message that Gunther gave to Kaiser. So that is also something, if you're looking for evidence of a Gunther babyface turn, this is something you could put in that column. And I think that it's plausible that we see a Gunther babyface run in the near future, 6 to 12 months from now. I think there's more to get out of the heel run. He's in a nice zone. He's in a groove. Also, if you're going to have CM Punk presumably challenge for that title at some point, you can't have Gunther as a babyface. You got to have him as a heel. And whenever Drew comes back, perhaps they intermingle in some way. It's a 3-way or whatever. But maybe he also challenges Gunther. You're going to have Gunther as a heel. It just fits the role for Gunther right now. But there's evidence that they're planting the seeds for a turn for Gunther. And you do wonder when exactly are Punk and McIntyre coming back. It may not be at the exact same time. It may not be. It doesn't need to be. I don't want them really intermingled with each other at all. I think we've seen the program that they put together was very well done. Memorable. One of the best programs of 2024. They had a hell of a final match at the Bad Blood event in Hell in a Cell. Both men laid it all on the line. That program has been completed, so I don't need them to rehash anything. Plus, when Punk left, you remember when Punk left that he bumped shoulders, for better, well, metaphorically, with Seth Rollins, that they keep teasing. And how apropos would it be if at the end of Survivor Series, we have the OG Bloodline standing there in the ring. They're victorious over Solo's Bloodline. And no Rock, but instead we get the same spot we got last year at the end of Survivor Series with CM Punk returning again to send Seth Rollins into oblivion again. The more I think about that, the more I think it makes sense. I really just thought about that it may not be just about eventually getting to a Roman Seth program. Eventually, I'm talking about maybe later in 25. I'm not talking about anytime soon. Definitely post-Mania if a Seth Rollins Roman match is happening, because there's a lot of other stuff these two need to get through before that. So sure, you could lay the groundwork, but more importantly, yes, you get to work with Bronson Reed. They have a hell of a chemistry. There's a reason for him to join, but above all, it gets to Punk Rollins, or at least takes the next big step to Punk Rollins. If they're not doing Mania, maybe they do Rumble or something, and you get CM Punk once again coming out the exact same way he did last year when he came back to WWE at the end of the show, and Seth Rollins once again is standing there, and he's having a seizure over CM Punk. Yeah, I think that's at least in the realm of possibility. All the components are there. Seth Rollins is in a War Games match. You know the War Games match is going to be the main event of the show. It's going to be so it's going on last. So Seth is in the same position again, on the same PLE again. You have CM Punk, who's been gone for a month plus, heading on to 2 months. And so when he's kind of out of the minds of fans as of late. So it'd be kind of a fun return to do the same way that you brought him in to bring him back. All the pieces are there. So I hope they see that. And if things are in place, that they go forward with that, because it's right there for the taking. And you don't have to get right away to Punk Rollins. Again, you could do what they were going to do last year and build to WrestleMania from Survivor Series. And it's more than, enough time to do that. So just more food for thought. All right. Well, long intro to the show, but welcome to the WWE Podcast, everybody. If you want to go ad-free, Patreon is the good way to go, or Apple Podcasts is also a great way to go. Both of them offer ad-free options, and both of them have 7-day free trials. If you want to go ad-free for a week and check us out before you commit anything, you can do that at patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Or if you want to check out my other podcast, which is getting off the ground, it's patreon.com/The War on Truth. Not wrestling, politics and culture. And that's what it is. So much different topics. But okay, so let's get into more of Monday Night Raw. And a Raw that saw a return that, if you didn't watch the spoilers or hear about them, which is really difficult these days, you saw the return of Rhea Ripley. After we had the 5-on-4 confrontation with Liv Morgan, Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, Candice LeRae, and Rodriguez on one side. And you had Bianca, Jade, Naomi, and Io Sky on the other. And Liv pointed out how she's the smartest woman in the locker room, and that, the math isn't mathing here, and you guys are still outnumbered. And she said, who wants to throw the first punch? Who's going to be stupid enough to do it? And that's when Rhea Ripley comes out, and face mask and all, makes her return. And even the announcers acknowledged, hey, we thought she was going to be out for months. I did too. Many of us did. But she's got the face mask on, and that's something she can compete with, as, out of every injury she could have. It's not the worst thing in the world to have an orbital injury if you're trying to continue to wrestle. It's not a joint. It's not a muscle. It's not a hamstring. It's not it's not a part of your body that you need in order to actually perform maneuvers safely. It's nothing that is, going to stop you. It's simply just, is your vision okay? And can you keep that area safe to heal while you still wrestle? And the answer is yes. I mean, it's just yes. And that orbital bone will heal. And you're not taking a lot of actual shots to the face anyway during matches. It's not like, you're actually punching your opponent in the face. It's really there for accidental contact. And I'm sure that her opponents will lay off the face and go for more, limbs and clotheslines and suplexes and things like that. So yeah, I'm glad she's able to compete. And it looks like War Games is going to be these 5 women. So we have a women's War Games match. Many of us, including myself, were duped into believing that it looks like they're taking a break from Rhea and Liv. They aren't. Team Rhea, Team Liv. Here we go. It's what we thought we were going to get, and we got it. We've got it as Jade Cargill and company stand tall with Rhea Ripley chasing down Liv Morgan. And it was a fun segment. Big pop for Rhea. And it was a good segment. And Rhea Ripley, all she yelled was War Games, and then she headbutted Morgan. And so again, it's good to see her coming back much sooner than many people expected. Of course, I can't speak about this segment without ripping on Jade Cargill, who wears heels into the matchup. Or into this segment. She's dressed for a fashion show instead of actually wrestling gear, and worrying about competition. She's worried about making sure that her Instagram posts look good. And she really didn't do much of anything in this segment. Is she regressing or something? She's doing less. She's actually doing less than she was doing. I know there's 10 women in the matchup. I know there's 10 women in the ring here, but she was just a complete non-factor. A total non-factor in her heels. Oh boy. Cut bait, guys. Cut bait. And I hope I'm proven wrong and people come back and say how much remember when you were hating on Jade and what they were doing with her? Look at her now. Yeah, but that's easy to say when it happens, right? Easy to say, easy to Monday morning quarterback. That's easy. Okay, what's difficult is making a proclamation ahead of time. And my proclamation is simply that I don't think WWE is seeing the progress they want to see. They don't, and they aren't. So I am rooting for her to succeed, but I don't know what cost I'm willing to see that anymore. All right, so anyway, we got our 5-on-5 women's elimination War Games match, and should be fun. It should be fun. It's exactly what you'd expect it to be. And we have a women's match for War Games. So anybody that had fear about the women's War Games match not happening, I think that fear has now been squashed. So Rhea's back, and I know a lot of people are happy about that. So we had Rey Mysterio and Zelina Vega versus Chad Gable and Ivy Nile in a mixed tag team match. And this ended with Rey Mysterio and Zelina getting a victory over Chad and Ivy Nile in 10 minutes. And it came when Rey hit a 619 and splash on Gable. He dropped the dime before getting the victory. Interestingly, though, after the match, Julius Creed and Brutus Creed came to the ring, and Gable pushed them away. Gable slapped Julius twice. Brutus laughed at Julius, and that led them to shoving one another. And Gable said this is what he was looking for. And then he raised all their arms. So the match was enjoyable. It's a very matter-of-fact match, a very matter-of-fact victory for Rey Mysterio specifically. And he just continues to be a timeless human being. I don't know what he's doing or what he's taking, but Rey Mysterio is in some kind of time. He's in some kind of break in the time-space continuum where he just is not. He's just not agreeing to aging. He's just like, yeah, that's not for me. You guys go ahead. That's not my thing, right? I don't know what it is with Rey, but it's unbelievable to see. If you had taken Rey Mysterio from 20 years ago and you took him from now and you watched the two tapes side by side and you didn't know which was which, I don't think it would be distinguishable. It would be indistinguishable which one was which, outside of course the TV quality and who he's facing. But if you could remove all that. But the idea that Chad Gable is an abusive leader in a group is hilarious. I love it. And yes, Otis and his group, and Otis and Maxine Dupree, and I can't think of the guy, but they did not take it for too long from Gable, although they went several weeks with the emotional and physical abuse. And they eventually snapped, although we didn't get the match we should have gotten out of Otis and Gable. How that match still hasn't happened it's criminal. They had a hell of a support from the fans when it came to Otis. They had it ready to go, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to end this with a shove. That's the big payoff, guys. Ready for it? After all the emotional and physical abuse, the humiliation on television, Otis is going to retaliate. Get ready. Wait for it. He's going to shove Gable. It's really... Think about that. The crowd was ready for him to pummel Gable into oblivion, and all we got was a shove. Which was fine in the moment because you were thinking it was going to lead to something more, and it led to nothing. It led to obscurity for Akira Tozawa. That's who it is. Akira Tozawa, Otis, and Maxine Dupree. It led to a disappearing act, which makes no sense. I'm not saying you need to make Otis the next world champion, but when you have the crowd behind a guy like that who has a connection with the crowd, the fans, you capitalize on it. Have at least one match. Have at least one match. They couldn't wait a second for Gable to be involved in the Wyatt Six feud, which still could have waited itself. I don't know why they immediately attacked Gable, who had a really bad week that week. If you remember, it happened the same week that Gable was attacked and murdered backstage by the Wyatt Six. It just, there was overlap with those two programs when there didn't need to be. There could have at least been a 1 week gap. 1 week. I'm sorry, I'm sour on this because they left that program out to dry. I might have compared it to a sneeze. What I mean by that is when you feel a sneeze coming on and you're like, oh, here it comes. And you're waiting for it. And you get like either like kind of a half internal sneeze or it just goes away. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't satisfying. That's what it was. When you had everything lined up, ready to go, and we didn't get it. Now they still could, I guess, resurrect it, but I don't know. Feels like that ship has sailed. I know this has nothing to do with this week, but I'm still sour on it. However, Gable abusing Julius and Brutus Creed, and you're thinking they're going to do the same and snap on Gable. When I say snap, of course, I mean, oh, they're going to shove Gable back. No, they didn't. They shoved each other. It fired them up more. And Gable was pleased with his actions because it resulted in what he wanted, which was those two getting together and being fired up, I guess. So they feed on emotional and physical abuse, apparently. And I mean, it's cool with me. I mean, I didn't want them to really turn on Gable yet. That group hasn't really, I don't think, fleshed itself out. Hasn't been together long enough where people would care that much about a Brutus and Julius babyface run, which we've already kind of seen that run. Then they turned heel with Gable. So they've got a nice home. There's no need to break this team up. And, you know, Otis, of course, or rather Gable fits nicely with the Creed brothers. All right. We then have Karrion Kross standing with The Miz. And he said, and this is a backstage vignette, if you will. Well, The Miz said it has been an emotional couple weeks, rather. And he said Miz gave the performance of a lifetime. And Karrion said he and the Wyatts are wounded people who hurt others, but they're not invincible. And he said he's not afraid of Uncle Howdy, and Howdy will continue to play the game that he controls. And so, fine. It's, you know, the Miz, I mentioned this last week. I know I did, that The Miz and Karrion Kross in the Final Testament. It's a weird pairing. It's an odd marriage, but they're heels and they have that in common, and they haven't teamed together before. So it's different. Both feel very comfortable as heels. So it's fine. It's an odd pairing. But they have a group to work with in the Wyatt Six, who also need television time in the worst way. They really need some momentum. They have cooled off a lot since their debut where they, committed mass murder. They're back, and then they had those VHS tapes every week, and it felt like after the VHS tapes, the creative looked around and they're like, so wait, what were we doing after the VHS tapes? And everyone's like kind of looking at each other for the other person to give the answer. And they're like, I don't know. I thought that was you. Wait, that was you. You had the idea. Well, what were you going to do? That's what it feels like, that they just had beyond the introduction, the very impactful introduction of the Wyatt Six. And they actually did a nice job of giving everybody their own identity with the VHS tapes, at least a little bit of hearing from what their perspective is and not pretending to give them new names. They didn't pretend Nikki Cross wasn't Nikki Cross or that Bo Dallas was actually Uncle Howdy. They didn't do that. They didn't do the magic tricks and the parlor tricks. They kept it more reality based, which I think is a great strategy when it came to the group. And the VHS tapes were cool because it's a massive throwback, obviously, to how we used to consume our entertainment, or at least the millennial generation and older did. But then after that, it just, they've been here, there, gone for 3 weeks back. And so I don't know what the long-term plan is with the Wyatt Six, but they need the Final Testament just as the Final Testament needs them. right now. They both need each other. So the Miz in there certainly helps. He had some star power, no doubt about it. So, yeah, Kaiser and Gunther, I already talked about that segment. Damian Priest was also backstage after Gunther gave Kaiser the pep talk, and he attempted to attack Priest with a chokehold, and Priest shoved him into some crates and then dropped him and, kind of sat there and stood over him. And he said that, you may be the general in the ring, but he said he's the king of the streets. So I mean, backstage is not the streets. I understand I know what they're getting at. If you're not in the ring, I've got you. I mean, fine. It's clever. I'm not crapping on the segment. It's fine. But I'm looking around going, this is hardly the streets, Damian. This is a very highly secured area, backstage with catering, your own locker room. You have your own athletic team there. You have a medical team there. Hardly is this the streets. Very, very much not the streets. Okay, Damian? But I understand the visual, right? I get it. But I thought to myself, Damian, I don't know what streets you were on that you ruled, but they aren't these streets because you ain't on a street. So, sorry, guys, I'm breaking down things on Raw. And it sounds like I'm complaining about Raw. It's not complaints. These aren't complaints, just rather observations. That's how I'll rebrand it anyway. Okay. Bron Breakker, Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship. And this match, it was fine. It was fine. It lasted 13 and a half minutes until Kaiser shows up. And he went after Breakker. He went after Sheamus. Left them both laying. And Ludwig Kaiser stands tall at the end of this. Pretty crazy. And it was the first time in Kaiser's career that I can remember that I looked at him and I said, they could do something with this guy. And it wasn't because of his actions. We've seen Kaiser occasionally be dominant and then get his ass kicked for 5 weeks and then have one good week. It wasn't because really his actions. It was his presence. I don't know how to explain it. At the end of the segment, he just looked like he had confidence that I haven't seen before, and that they might actually be doing something with him beyond just living in the shadow of Gunther. And I hope they do. I think Kaiser does have more to offer. He does have a presence. And again, this past week, there was something it wasn't a massive shift. He didn't have this A+ promo. It was just a subtle change in the way I viewed Kaiser. And it could go nowhere. This could be a failed experiment. And he's just another guy in a year. You're like, oh yeah, what'd they do with Kaiser? I hope not. I think he does have a bright future. I hope he does. But the Intercontinental Championship stays with Bron Breakker. It should stay with Bron Breakker. He's a 2-time Intercontinental Champion now. Unnecessarily. There's no need for that 1 month break with Jey Uso. Rather, I should say 5-second break with Jey Uso. But it's also cool to see Sheamus out there. And he still can put on a hell of a match. He's still one of the most physical guys in the company. And Breakker being able to work with Sheamus is nothing but good things for Sheamus and good things for Breakker. So this was a win-win-win for everyone involved, from Breakker to Sheamus to Kaiser. Yes, Sheamus didn't win, but that wasn't ever really on the table anyway. So, all right. So we got then the War Raiders, Eric and Ivar, taking on Dominic Mysterio and Carlito. The match was 9.5 minutes that saw Eric and Ivar defeat Dom and Carlito. And it was a decent match. a match that did end up with, yes, Eric and Ivar getting the victory, but they're the ultimate losers. They won the battle but lost the war because Finn Balor and JD McDonough attacked the Warrior Raiders from behind. Balor hit Eric with a coup de grace, or if you want to, by the way, if you want to know how to spell coup de grace, if I was to say the words phonetically, here's how ridiculous coup de grace would sound. Coup de grace. That's actually how it is spelled phonetically. So if you ever need to type coup de grace, it's coup de grace. Yes. So Finn hit a coup de grace on Eric, and Balor and McDonough stood tall and left the Raiders lying in shambles. And so, I mean, there's nothing really epic going on here other than you have the War Raiders who continue to be, I think, even in a victory, but at the end of it, you kind of forgot about the victory because they got beat down. I still think this is a win for them because, number one, their gimmick is refined, but different enough where it feels more authentic than the Viking experience or the Viking Raiders. They feel just more of what it should have been to begin with. And their match here with Carlito and Dom, they're a good pairing. The War Raiders are just they're your solid babyface team. You have Dom and Carlito. Anything with Dom is going to get booed. So this was just a traditional heel versus babyface tag team match that ended with the heels losing, but still getting their heat back at the end of the match, which was the goal here. And it also gave the War Raiders a shot at the tag team titles. And this is, do I think they're going to win? Maybe. I think there's a real chance that the War Raiders do win the tag team championships. I mean, the men's tag team championships are not that much better in terms of time and attention than the women. I mean, the women's is always at an all-time low most of the time, but the men's is not far behind. WWE has not and will not ever be a tag team focused promotion. They won't be. And I don't blame them. And the reason is the most of the money is found at the singles role. The biggest stars are made at the singles role. Yes, you have legendary tag teams that that you can name that have come and gone. But the idea of a tag team is to eventually have them split and create single stars out of them. So I think with that mentality that's ingrained in professional wrestling, probably until the end of time, you're never going to have a promotion go, well, tag teams are the end all be all. That's the goal. That's the highest level of success that you can achieve. That's where we make the most money. That's not been historically, at least since I've been watching wrestling for 25 years. I don't even know how long, 97. So that's 28 years, whatever the heck it is, almost. That I've been watching it. It's never been the focal point. It'll occasionally main event a show. You'll have the occasional, match of the year candidate with tag teams. And we've seen legendary ones come and go, as I've said. But I want to bring that up. I know that I'm straying far from what happened this week with the War Raiders and Mysterio and Carlito. But still, I think it's worth mentioning when you have tag teams that look like they're getting hot. They look like they're getting momentum. And you're like, well, sure, they could win the tag belts. But then what? Are they just creating, are they putting them up on a pedestal to just simply, split them? And a lot of times the answer is yes. Okay. We had a Wyatt 6 video air, and Bo Dallas spoke about the trust of the innocent is a liar's most useful tool. And Dallas said he tried to warn you, but you damned yourself. Dallas said he's sorry for what happens next. And you said you will lose what matters most. It's okay. So threatening, very Bray Wyatt-ish. A little bit of Riddle, but you could dive into that as you will, whatever, I guess, matters most to the Miz, I guess, is what he's referring to. Is he gonna abduct his wife and kid? I mean, I don't, I'm not sure. Didn't Bray Wyatt, break in or teleport into the Miz's home at one point? Wasn't there something? Was that during the pandemic era? I feel like I'm missing something. Somebody will dig it up. All right. A Lyra Valkyria video aired. She said she was thrown straight into the fire when she was drafted to Raw, but she didn't burn. And she said she hit the ground running, and she used to think she was like a phoenix, but is so much more. She said she doesn't burn, she rises, and she's coming for everyone. So I guess like a phoenix, she's rising from the ashes. Okay, if you're a phoenix, so wouldn't you have to be burned to rise from the ashes? Because if you burn, you turn to ash. I'm getting very literal this week, guys. I don't, but sometimes it needs to be called out. And I like Lyra Valkyria. I like what she's got to offer. Very scripted promo. I don't know if she was watching Harry Potter. I'm not sure what she was doing this weekend or what the creative team was doing or who came up with this. I wasn't a fan of it. It was just a little too cartoonish for me in terms of the content of the promo. But here's what I'll take from this. I will say Lyra Valkyria does need to be featured more. I think that she needs a more based program. She needs something that she can latch onto that's not kind of a very hot shot, one time, then see you in 5 weeks kind of program, which is what they've done with Valkyria. And not that I shouldn't say that she's not been off TV for 5 weeks at a time in chunks, but if you watch the Hulu version, number one, she's barely on that. So if you watch the Hulu version, you think she's absent, but even in the matches she's in, they're irrelevant. They have no consequence. The crowd doesn't react very much to her matches at all, whatever tag team matches she's in. And it's simply because she needs time to develop her character, and WWE hasn't done a whole lot of that. That said, she did get a little bit this week, despite the fact that it was kind of cartoonish. So, okay. So the Alpha Academy, Akira Tozawa, Otis, and Maxine were walking backstage when they encountered Kofi Kingston. Dupree said they're excited about the New Day anniversary. Xavier Woods showed up and said they had to talk because they've been yelling at each other. Woods recalled Karrion Kross saying New Day is dead and that they were the only people who didn't know it. Kingston told him that he needs to remember what the New Day is all about. Woods took offense over Kingston saying he needed to remember. Otis interrupted. Woods told him to mind his own business. Woods asked what advice Otis could give to the greatest tag team of all time. Woods set up a New Day versus Alpha Academy match next week, and Kingston didn't look happy about it. So, yeah, Woods on track for a heel turn. And I don't need any swerves or weird things happening where Kofi turns heel. No. This is all about Woods. I've said this for months now. This is all about Woods. Woods is the guy to turn heel. Don't be screwy. Don't try to do anything cute. Keep it simple. Woods is the guy you turn because he's the guy that you need to focus on after the turn. Kofi's had his time. Woods has not. Let's see what Woods can do. So, all right. Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins. This was a match that ended the show. 17, nearly 18 minutes. The finish was Rollins hitting a stomp. Knowing that wasn't going to keep him down, it looked like he was going from a top rope or second rope stomp. That's when, of course, we got the interference from the Bloodline 2.0. We got Jay and Sammy and Jimmy and Toe to even the odds. And that's after the three guys on the Bloodline and the Bloodline 2.0 kind of, negated each other into a brawl into the crowd. That's when Solo showed up and distracted Rollins, which cost him the matchup because Bronson took advantage and hit a couple of sentons, hits his finish, the tsunami, and gets the victory, which is going to be one of the catalysts for Seth, I think, changing his mind to joining the Bloodline, the OG Bloodline. So going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Again, I still believe that Punk should return in the same fashion he did last year with in the same exact scenario with Rollins standing there. Obviously, Orton isn't returning this year and all that, but still, yeah, you've got you got the puzzle pieces oddly in the same place as you did 12 months ago. It's a good time to do it, but you also get a fun kind of maybe finish to the Seth and Bronson Reed program inside the War Games match. So you really kill a few birds with one stone. And having Seth Rollins there, you have more star power. It's 5-on-5, fits Survivor Series tradition. You get the Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins kind of side program going on. They have great chemistry. It also sets up for a Punk return that mimics last year's kind of a very poetic finish. It all does seem to make sense. Despite all my complaining about Seth going back on his word, and I still, to some degree, don't think he should, there are some very compelling reasons to have him turn on his word, given the events of this week. And if Roman Reigns talks to Seth Rollins directly, I don't want them shaking hands. I don't want them pretending they're the Shield again. I don't want them giving each other hugs. I don't want anything. I don't want Christmas cards exchanged. I just want them to have a tense but very frank conversation that we can see that spells out why Seth Rollins should join and why it's only one night, and here are the advantages. Here's what's in it for you. That is how it should be sold. And, acknowledging that, hey, we have our unfinished business. We'll get to that. Not specifying when, but at least acknowledging that we don't like each other in any form or fashion. We have unfinished business. We will finish that business when we're done with when we're done with what we're doing with, Bronson Reed and eventually Punk for Seth and eventually The Rock for Roman Reigns and Roman still dealing with his bloodline. Where's the wise man? So they've got a lot to hash out before Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns get back into the adversarial side of things and into an actual program, which I don't think will actually happen until you get to the draft next year when they're both put on the same show. So, but again, what the hell? They don't care. There's no such thing as a draft. There's no such thing as draft rules. We know that. I hammer that on this show too much. So, all right. That'll do it for the week, or the Raw review, rather, not the weekend review. I did that yesterday. So, thank you so much. I'll be back on Friday with some mailbag. And for those of you on Patreon on the SmackDown tier and above, perhaps a video or two in between that time. And so that's another incentive. If you're interested in Patreon, you have exclusive little snippets. You get the After Dark show. Hopefully we'll have another episode for you by tomorrow for those on the SmackDown tier and higher. And you can check that out. And go over the Patreon and check out our new show too. It's called The War on Truth. That's also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So lots of places to go, lots of places to get your audio and your podcast fixed. So that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.